On this episode of Still Loading, how EA destroys, well, pretty much everything. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of the Still Loading podcast. I am your host, Josh Koval, and today on the show, we are continuing our Command and Conquer look, our look at the Command and Conquer series. You may remember from last fall, I had my friend Bob on to talk about a good chunk of the Command and Conquer series, from the original all the way up to Command and Conquer General 0 Hour. That was still only half of the Command and Conquer series, approximately. So I have brought Bob back to talk about Command and Conquer 3 and its subsequent games. So Bob, how are you doing today?
Man, I got my 214 signed, and I am loving life right now. I have not done anything for the past week and a half.
What is a 214?
It basically means I am no longer Uncle Sam's bitch.
For those who did not know, Bob was in the U.S. military. Thank you for your service, sir.
Marine Corps, hoorah, certified, do or die, 20 years, slave body, kill babies, yeah!
Holy shit, I'm going to have to really lower that down.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Just a quick disclaimer. Bob's mic is extra sensitive, and we have not been able to figure out why. So if you hear some peaking every now and then, I will, it's not going to blow out your ears. I will edit it down. But in case you hear any distortion, that's why. It's not Bob's fault. It's a very sensitive microphone. It needs a safe space.
Second disclaimer.
I don't know why
I do not condone the killing of bodies.
The killing of bodies.
Babies are annoying as hell. We all know that.
I have a baby, sir, and she's not.
Yes, and ain't she annoying as hell? No, I'm kidding. Yours is a lovely daughter. Yeah, right. Anyway, let's get started on Command and Conquer, shall we?
Yes, Command and Conquer 3: Tiberium Wars. Now, that's the first game we're going to be talking about now, but it was. Actually, let me double check here real quick.
Well, as you do that, let me.
We said in the intro that EA destroys everything, I believe EA's first game was the Generals in 0 Hour, right? That was the first game in the series.
As last time, let me please start with my spiel.
Go for it.
Okay. Long ago, in a galaxy far. Wait, wrong script. Space. A final. No. Da 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 da. No, that's Stargate. Screw it. So, last where we left off, we had talked about how EA Games had acquired the Westwood franchises and Westwood Studios and changed it to EALA. Yes. And after that, they had created the Command & Conquer's Generals series. Now, like I said before, Generals was not a bad concept, but it was very ripped from the headlines and very much built on the world around us at the time. And it came about at a time where gaming was kind of starting to, shall we say, settle down. It had bought a house, it was married, and was looking to have kids. So you couldn't exactly have shit like the GLA having suicide bombers as a unit in a strategy game, could you?
No.
Exactly. Now, for a while, Command & Conquer 3 had been in development, even while Generals was still being polished for release, because that's how game companies work. You got to have something in the pipe even when you're ready to release something new. And so for a while there had been preview images, there had been screenshots of the initial alpha and beta builds, and for what we saw, it wasn't a bad game. It was being built in the new 3D engine that had been worked on Generals, the Sage engine, and honestly we were getting excited for it, because Tiberium, as we had all come to realize, was the core of Command & Conquer.
It's the primary, it was like the resource everyone was vying after.
Exactly, and it was the game that built the franchise.
Mm-hmm.
So, for a while, it was kind of hit or miss. Would they release? Won't they release? When are they going to release it? And then finally, in 2007, they released Command & Conquer 3: Tiberian Wars. Now, initially, Westwood had wanted to release it as Tiberian Twilight. But they have a franchise, you got to predict for the future. So instead of Twilight, which implies an ending of things, they said Tiberium Wars, which, given the time frame, 2007, we were still in Iraq, still in Afghanistan, the war on terror was in full swing. It was still kind of ripped from the headlines, but kind of modified to fit this sci-fi mold. And at about this time, sci-fi had also kind of gone through a bit of a shift. It wasn't Star Wars kind of epic space operas anymore. You weren't flying through the universe, discovering new life and new civilizations. Now, sci-fi had kind of gone more of an SG-1 route, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, in Command & Conquer 3, you start off with a mission briefing about how Tiberium has taken over the world, how much of the planet has been rendered uninhabitable. Now, for those of you who remember, back in the first episode we talked about this, in Command & Conquer Firestorm, GDI had gained access to what's known as the Tacitus. It was an alien device that allowed mankind to understand Tiberium and to try and rein it back in, to take back the planet.
Okay.
And by Command & Conquer 3 in the story, much of the Earth has been divided into 3 distinct zones. And this is where some of that post-Iraq war stuff comes in. Now, in Iraq, there was something called the Green Zone, which was safe areas, and the Red Zone, which was pretty much all of Baghdad. So in Command & Conquer 3, you had blue zones, which were the habitable portions of Earth, the pristine areas that were protected,
Mm-hmm.
and who were under defense of the Global Defense Initiative, GDI, and who, unsurprisingly, are mostly former G8 nations, parts of the United States, parts of Japan and South Korea, parts of Europe, regions of the world that we can associate normally in Western media and consuming with safety, security, political security, military strength, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then there were the yellow zones. Yellow zones are areas that have been kind of hit hard by Tiberium, but where most of the world population lives. Regions like India, Central Africa, Northern South America, Eastern Europe. Regions that, oh, hey, you kind of associate these things in the West with instability, terrorism, dictators, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then there's the red zones, which are completely uninhabitable and still kind of alien in terms of what they look like. There's giant Tiberium glaciers ripping out from the very fissures in the earth. There's ion storms constantly sweeping through the regions of the world that have been morphed into this literally, it's a xenoforming agent that has turned these parts of the earth into an alien landscape. And that's no human can live there. It's the realm of the forgotten. Those individuals who we talked about in the last episode who have been turned by Tiberium into mutants that cannot live anymore among mankind because of the Tiberium that lives within their bodies.
Okay.
I will now pause for questions.
Let's keep going.
Now, in the intervening years between Firestorm and CNC3, the Brotherhood of Nod, who are the followers of Kane and the ones who worship Tiberium, and the Global Defense Initiative, who are the coalition of nations who want to try and stop the spread and restore Earth as it was, have further kind of grown apart. Now, the Brotherhood of Nod has become even more of a nation state. With the collapse of traditional governments, Nod has become a nation state in and of itself, capable of trying to save those who live in the yellow zones from the horrors of the Tiberium world, but while also getting for themselves a nice few followers. You need a few militias.
You get a couple more suckers. I get not suckers because
not suckers. Loyal brothers and sisters.
Loyal brothers and sisters. There you go.
You need militias. You need some militants. Peace through power, after all. But it's also clear that Nod has teched up a lot.
Mm-hmm.
They've got this very religious zeal to them too. Like, again, in previous games, it was very much hinted that Nod was a very religious group. Here, it's full on display that it's the Brotherhood of Nod. The very intro video has the leader of Nod's elite forces going. It's like she's giving a spiel in a church about how their history goes back to prehistory, long before the arrival of the great green crystal on Earth. And it's a great moment in the cinematics. Like, in CNC3, the cinematics were so good, too, because they had actual legit actors plying their trade.
Are you calling Tim Curry not a legit actor?
I'm not saying Tim Curry. Don't spoil anything for anyone. We're still getting there.
Tim Curry was in the first Red Alert.
He was in the third Red Alert. Shut up. I'm the expert here.
Wait, I was in the third one? I thought he was in one of the earlier ones.
No, he was in the third one, but he still had that great line of space!
So that was in the third one, not any of the earlier ones.
Yeah, you fucked up on that one.
Fuck, I put that in the first episode. I thought that was... Oh, my God. Anyway, well,
Folks,
that's
direct
still
your hate mail too.
too at Bob
Anyway,
of Bobbington. Go on.
so that's Nod's setup. They've basically taken over the yellow zones. They are the de facto government. Meanwhile, GDI has kind of superseded its mandate as it was originally made. Remember, in the first game, it was a defense coalition under the United Nations. In the second game, it basically became a de facto military government. In the third game, GDI has essentially become the government. They're still
Mhm.
supposed to be the old borders, the old nation states of the United States and Canada and Britain. At this point, though, it's GDI's game. The White
Yeah.
House is literally mentioned as being a tourist attraction, not the seat of the most powerful nation on Earth. So that gives you a hint about how much things have changed ever since Tiberium landed.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, by this point, there's been kind of a lull in the conflict. For about 20 years, Nod has been low level infighting with itself because, Kane's supposed to be dead after Firestorm and Tiberium's son. But
Mhm.
in the GDI intro cinematics, you meet your commander, played by Michael Ironside, in one of his best performances. Yes,
The great
he,
overactor of our generation.
he doesn't overact in this one. Actually, he
No?
keeps it pretty close to the hilt, but you still get that feel from Starship Troopers of him being good old Lieutenant Ratcheck. But here he's a leading general for GDI, and he's your commander in the GDI campaign. And he is, as he briefs you in the first missions, he's rightfully suspicious that something's building up. It's been too quiet. Nod has only been making very small strikes, and he's very suspicious of what Nod is planning now. On the other side of the fence, you have Nod under Kane once again. Like literally, Kane walks out with a biblical quote about Jesus and Lazarus. Like you of course know this quote. And he cried in a loud voice, "Lazarus, come forth!" And then he walks in the
Yeah.
screen, and Lazarus did rise from the dead. And then he goes off on this whole spiel about how he knows who his loyal followers are, who, even though they preach his word about Tiberium, their deeds betray them, and how he sees you as this loyal son of Nod.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you're left with, again, it was Joe Kukin is the best game actor because he gives you chills when he's giving you this spiel as Kane.
And he an actor before this?
Oh yeah, he was an actor. He was involved in Las Vegas theater long before Command and Conquer.
So wait, so Joe Cook he wasn't the first guy who played Nod one of the game developers?
Oh no. Some of the game
Okay.
developers were in the cutscenes, but Kane and Joe Kukin, who plays Kane, is an actor. He's a legit actor. He appeared in CSI.
Oh, really? Okay. I'm totally blanking on this now. Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You've had a rough week,
It's been a busy week. Okay, I
but
was
yes,
trying to look up. All right, I thought that dude was one of the game developers. I didn't know he
no,
was
like
an actual actor.
again, some of the actors were part of the game development staff at Westwood, but Kukin was a legit actor and is a legit actor, I should say. He's still acting, and he
Okay.
gave you chills when he was going off as Kane in this intro cinematic because he makes you feel like, yes, you are this loyal follower of Nod who follows the prophet Kane to bring the world to Tiberium's salvation.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, GDI, they feel more like a bit of a Tom Clancy-esque kind of thriller. Like, we got to find Nod. We got to hunt them down. We got to stop them before they play this big attack that
Yeah, yeah.
really throws us all for a loop.
Mhm.
And the game starts with GDI noting that there's a big ecological summit on the space station Philadelphia. And all of GDI's major command is going to be up there, and it's a big deal. So this is the time to really be on guard, according to Michael Ironside's character. And of course, your first missions are pretty simple, give you the feel of the game, give you that quick tutorial. GDI's mission, you're scouting a Nod base that's been acting up in North Carolina, which is part of the Yellow Zones now. Meanwhile, your first Nod mission is to attack the Goddard Space Center in Maryland to take down GDI's satellite defenses. And again, both start very simple missions, give you a feel for the game again. Nod, you still get the feel. And again, this is what I was talking about last time with those aesthetics, those visual shorthands to tell you who is who.
Wait, so sorry, I'm cutting you off here because I'm looking at his filmography. Joe
Oh,
Coogan's
brother.
dude. He's only been in one other movie that I like, a handful of stuff, but he's the director of these games.
Yeah, the director in terms of the cinematics. Remember, full motion video is still a major part of Command and Conquer.
That's true. But like the thing is like I saw it's like it's like we were both right. He was a game developer, but the way you made it describe that he wasn't a game developer, he was more of
Oh
an
no, that was
actor.
meant to. That's
And
my
I'm like,
mistake.
I don't know about that because like I'm looking at this and he like almost all of his credits are video games except for he was in a movie called Monkey on Mama's Back, another movie called Lucky Town, and then his most recent credit was back in 2011 where it was a I don't know if it was a TV show or a movie, but it's called A Few Best Men, um, and it looks like a comedy. I'm trying to
I'm
see
going to
who
be
the
absolutely honest with you. I don't watch anything for Joe Kukin outside of Command and Conquer. I'm yeah.
a young Rebel Wilson is in this before became famous. Like it was like the year before she hit it big with Bridesmaids and like Pitch Perfect. But Lucky Town was in 2000 and that has Kirsten Dunst and James Caan in it. Um
Are we talking about Command and Conquer still?
we are. I'm just hold on a second. God damn it. I'm looking at this. I want to see this. And Monkey on
Folks,
Mama's
as
Back.
Josh has his mental breakdown.
I'm not having a mental breakdown. I'm going down an IMDb rabbit hole, you son of a bitch. Uh,
Oh, it's
um,
so nice talking to you again.
I know, right? No, so all right, but
Okay,
no,
can we get back to Command and
sorry.
Conquer, please, though? Because that's what we're here for.
We this is tied to Command and Conquer because it's Joe Kukin, okay? And I was gonna say though, the reason I was curious is just because like I wanted to see what else he has done. You said he was an actor and he's been in other things, so I was like, well, what other things has he been in? Not a lot. That's not a slight against him, but it's really cool to know that he really isn't known for acting, really, because he's like at least in like a Hollywood sense but but the way you describe his performance as Kane is just it makes me want to go and play these games. So like dive into more of them because I've played the first one a little bit. I still need to beat it, but I in preparation for our last episode, and right now as we speak, it'll be probably not on sale by the time the episode comes out. But this game, Tiberium Wars, is on sale for $3.74. So I might pick that up after we're done recording.
I'll
Anyway,
take that
sorry.
as the cue to go back into Tiberium
Yes,
Wars.
you see, Bob, there's this thing called hosting where you can go off on tangents and bring us back into the topic we're talking about.
Yeah, well, you got me as a guest, so that was your fucking mistake.
I'm the one that tangented. Anyway,
Anyway,
go on.
so yes, again, that visual aesthetic, that visual shorthand for both sides is still there. GDI's units all look like they're these professional military forces still, but with the high tech upgrades that make them feel like they're in a near future sci fi war movie. While Nod is still this mysterious, quasi religious fanatic group. Like, again, Nod's forces include suicide bombers wearing Tiberium vests, screaming in the name of Kane as they kill themselves in GDI forces.
And so there's the political parallel of the stuff at the
Exactly.
time because at the time in like
2007.
2006 2007 a lot of the stuff that populated American news was the talk of suicide bombers
Mm-hmm.
over in the Middle East. So yeah, this series I really think like a political science major should really look at to see like what like the parallels and how the game's stories progressed along with current events. That'd be really interesting.
Oh, it certainly would be. And again, the thing about CNC3 is it didn't shy away from that intrigue either. So, on the Nod side of things, you are preparing to launch, as Kane says it, the third Tiberium War, the war to end all wars.
Hmm.
And so, as you take down GDI space defenses, everyone in GDI is going, okay, what's going on? Goddard's gone dark. Nod's attacking. What's going on? And then Nod launches a nuclear missile from North Africa at the space station Philadelphia and wipes out GDI's command. Like all their top leaders, all their directors, all their generals, boom, gone.
Wow.
It's a decapitation strike. And Nod launches a massive sweeping assault across the globe on every blue zone in the world. In the Northeast blue zone on the United States, South Korea and Japan, a small chunk of Australia, Europe, they're overrun with Nod forces that have been waiting 20 years for this moment. And when you're playing as Nod, basically you're striking at the heart of GDI's operations. You strike at their naval facilities in Alexandria. You strike at Washington, D.C., in the White House and you just throw your fucking fist straight into GDI's face.
Yeah.
You floor them. You hang Nod banners from the front of the White House, and your Nod mission control, your intelligence officer's going, "Hey, take a picture in the White House for me. Love to see it as a souvenir." And then, as GDI, you're stuck scrambling. Like Michael Ironside is going, "Commander, all hell's broken loose in GDI, and we're right here in the middle of it in DC. Nod's attacking the Pentagon. I need you to get out there and show them what we can do." And again, it's just this GDI, you're on the ropes and you fight back. You push them back from the Pentagon. You push them into Virginia. You resecure the White House. Hooray! We've stopped Nod. And then,
Yeah.
the rest of the world. And so the first half of the game is really just setting the stage for what happens after. Now, from here, the campaign splits into two regions. For Nod, you are sent to South America to protect a very vital Nod project that's trying to create a new Tiberium weapon. Now, remember, Nod loves Tiberium weapons. It's a super weapon for them.
Yeah.
So as you're protecting this weapon, you kind of get the sense that things aren't exactly going as Nod's command had hoped. Your senior leader, Killian Qatar, notes that we overextended ourselves, but this is what Kane wanted, so we obey, because Kane is the one leading us to his Tiberium future.
Mm-hmm.
On the flip side, as GDI, you're introduced to one of the greatest characters in Command & Conquer history, Redmond Boyle, director of GDI, played by the great Billy D. Williams. Yes, Billy D. Williams is in Command & Conquer, ladies and gentlemen. And he's so... He survived because he was on Earth. He's GDI's director of finance. And even at the start of when you introduced him, like Michael Ironside's character is going, "Now, I know he's only director of finance, but he's a tight man with the purse strings, and we'll need every penny to make sure we win this war." And it's like this great... Okay, he's trying to make sure you don't lose hope that this guy's in charge. And it's a great moment because that's what a commander does. He tries to make sure you know, okay, look, shit's bad, but it could be worse. And when he introduces himself, Billy D's character, he walks in. He's got a fur-lined coat. He's got a walking stick. He's got the slick-back hair. He's like, "Redmond Boyle, General, truly an honor to meet you, truly. I admire your work in D.C. And he's like, "Commander, we're going to go and we're going to take the fight to Nod. I want you to know that you'll be my top man to take this fight." And again, it's like contrast between the politician and the general. It's such a great... Again, people like give Billy Williams slack, but he's a great actor when he really gets into it. And he did well as Redmond Boyle in this game.
Mm-hmm.
And so for GDI, you have to go to North Africa to find the nuclear weapons that Nod's been launching. And so you're hunting WMDs. Gee, I wonder what that sounds like.
Another parallel to the real world at the time, yeah.
Subtle. Anyway. But so, yeah, the campaigns, this might sound weird for me to say, but they are a bit generic in how they're laid out and written. But what helps is the characters you play through them with. The live action cutscenes are back and they're better than ever because you're not a specific character like in Tiberium Sun. No, you are a actual commander again. They're talking to you through the view screen. You're directing your forces through the battle control interface, and you are, again, in that zone as a Command & Conquer player.
Now, would you say was this game, because it kind of ties into what we're going to talk about towards the end of the episode with EA destroying the franchise. Is this the start of that, or is this still considered a good game?
No. I would say this is when EALA's people understood that, we have something here that fans love, and we want to bring some of that back a little.
Yeah. All right, cool.
It's all still there. All the units are there. Now, there was a bit of a kerfuffle because in the previous Tiberian game, Tiberian Sun, GDI was using giant walker units. Like, whoop, whoop, I have legs and I'm a tank. Whoop, whoop. But in this game, they went back to tanks, and it was kind of like, why are they going back to tanks when they had walkers? But that was a minor thing for a lot of people.
Yeah.
The really hardcore fanboys were going, "Ah!" But for the most part, we were just enjoying playing the game again.
The story sounds really good too. Like it
is a great story. And again,
it's very compelling. Like just listening to you kind of surmise it a little bit, it just makes me want to go experience it for myself. I know I'm going to be saying that a lot because this is kind of like the continuation of the unofficial continuation of my History of RTS series. It's dormant at the time for the time being, but it's just making me want to go back and play some more.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad I'm spreading the gospel of the great Tiberium game series. And once more, the Brotherhood of Nod shall rise, and all will know the glory of Kane. Peace through power! Peace through power! Sorry, that happens
I
sometimes.
can literally only guess what your wife is thinking. Like outside the room, you just hear she
Oh,
just
she left the
walking.
house. I told her we'd be doing this, so she's out.
Oh, okay. See, it would have been funnier if she like walking by the door and just hear you screaming "peace through power" and be like,
Oh,
"What is?"
she's heard me do crazier things, don't worry.
Anyway,
But
go
we'll get
on.
into my personal life at another time. Dr. Phil, what you need to learn is we need to focus on the task at hand. Thank you, Dr. Phil. Now, so for the most of the game, you're fighting in two separate campaigns. And again,
Yeah.
you get the sense that not all is good under the surface for either faction. For Nod, some of the Nod leadership is kind of questioning where Kane's going with this. They don't know what his plan is because he just spent so many Nod brothers and sisters on an attack that was supposed to wipe out GDI, and now GDI is coming back hitting hard. What the hell happened, Kane? And as for GDI, Redmond Boyle is being this political wheeler dealer while you're on the ground going, okay, what's going on? Why is Nod being so secretive all of a sudden? What's this intelligence we're getting?
Mm-hmm.
And so as the game builds up to Act 3, you find out that Nod has been pushed back, at least in Europe, back to Sarajevo, back to Eastern Europe where it all began, Temple Prime.
Oh, okay.
Exactly. And so Redmond Boyle, he's like, I don't want to be left out of the loop of any more decisions. I want to take the fight to Nod. We are attacking Temple Prime, and we are going to make Kane pay for every life he's taken. And meanwhile, Ironside's going, that's a bad idea, sir. We can't trust Kane. We don't know what he's got planned. That's your decision, General, but I'm in overall command of GDI, and I say that people want to see payback. Gee, doesn't that sound familiar?
No, I guess. I mean, I guess
What
parallels
happened after
to.
9/11? We're going to hunt him down. We're going to show him who's boss. We're going to take the crusade. Ooh,
There we
ixnay
go.
on the
Yeah.
crusade,
The
say.
only
Thank
reason,
you, Mr.
the
Williams.
only reason it didn't click with me is because since that was like at the time this came out 6 years prior, I didn't know how close they are paying to like the whole
It's
current
still
events.
pretty close. Remember, when terrorists strike, the automatic instinct is to pay them back. That's how it
Yeah.
works. And so, politically, Redmond Boyle is going, I need to secure GDI's belief that we can pay back these terrorists for what they've done. Meanwhile, Ironside's there going, okay, no, hang on. We got to stop and think for a minute, man.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, for Nod, the cracks have really started to grow now. General Qatar is supposed to be Kane's most loyal follower, but now she's openly questioning his decisions. We are spending our forces. We cannot hold these positions. Kane, what are we going to do? And Kane is just there going, rest assured, my child, I have a plan. Well, what's the plan? It's like
Yeah.
how you'll see people going, hey, God, what's going on? I have a plan, my child. Well, can we know?
Mm-hmm.
And so, fixing in with that, eventually you get to these two big battles between the two factions. Now, in the first Nod battle, you're betrayed by Killian's forces. Her forces launch an attack on Temple Prime. They're trying to kill your ass.
Yeah.
So, of course, like, oh my god, she betrayed Kane. What the hell? Holy fuck. Because remember, you betray Kane, you're basically dead.
You're dead. You've betrayed the Brotherhood.
Yeah, you got the mark of Kane on you.
More
At the flip
religious
side,
symbolism.
exactly. And then on the flip side for GDI, well, guess what? We got to take down Nod's serious no shit headquarters for their global operations. Temple Prime is back again, baby. And so you got to fight through a very hard mission in
Mm-hmm.
GDI. In my opinion, the GDI mission is a lot harder than the Nod mission. Maybe just because I suck, but no, I had a hell of a time in the original game fighting through these layers of Nod defenses, just trying to get through to Temple Prime. And they don't give you the ion cannon just yet. You got to fight with just ground forces, and it's a hell of a slog of a mission. But then you finally fire the ion cannon. And see, here's the thing. Throughout the game, in the Nod campaign, there are hints given by Kane and one of his advisors. The weapon is not ready. We do not have a way to ignite it. We do not have the proper ignition system. And Kane's just like, we will find one. And then the ion cannon comes down on Temple Prime
Oh, okay.
on
So,
Boyle's orders.
oh, and that's the ignition system that they
Mm-hmm.
were.
And so It's literally a Tiberium bomb. And in the previous GDI campaign in North Africa, you had found evidence that there is a liquid Tiberium weapon capable of catalyzing Tiberium into a ignition system. Like basically, it's like what's a good analogy? Okay, remember in MythBusters when they had the sawdust bomb?
No, I don't. I've never really watched Mythbusters.
Shame on you, shame on your family, shame on your life.
I have more important things to do. Okay.
So basically, if you detonate this Tiberium weapon,
Yeah.
it turns any Tiberium, liquid or crystal, into a bomb. And the Ironside character even says it. Good lord, in a yellow zone, that could mean thousands of acres. So literally, you detonate that liquid Tiberium weapon in Sarajevo, in the heart of Nod's territory, which we know Nod spreads Tiberium on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
It literally just takes a chunk out of Eastern Europe. The Balkans are basically blown to shit.
Dear God.
But here's the other thing. As the world is reeling from this, they also show you in the game that a energy signature is shot up into space.
Okay.
Now, remember how in Tiberium's Sun we talked about how Nod was looking a little alien, how there was some weird shit going on with some of their devices?
Vaguely. I mean, it's been almost a year since we recorded, but yes, vaguely.
Well, Westwood's plan was always to have space be a factor in Tiberium. And so what happens is, as you're all still reeling and trying to figure out what the hell just happened in Sarajevo, deep space satellites pick up a signal.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where we get to another major factor. This is where we bring in the scrin.
So we're like almost. I mean, we had a little bit of recording that we recorded off the top before we started in earnest. We're almost 30 minutes in now, and you're not even halfway through this first story.
What can I say?
This
It's
is
a curse of the
depth.
Irish. We must tell a story to the tilt.
You must tell a story to tell the true story.
Exactly.
The lie that tells the truth. Anyway, so the scrin shows up, and so from what I'm just kind of seeing on the Wikipedia here, it seems like they retconned. Oh no, they later retconned it. Sorry.
Exactly. Now remember, again, originally they were supposed to be going into space. They were supposed to have like these alien visitors to Earth. But again, EA restructured and shit went kind of sideways. But the scrin were always going to be a factor. It just was different how they utilized them.
Yeah.
So in this case, what they did was the scrin are basically kind of your typical alien invaders. They slam into Earth. They attack without warning or mercy. They strike population centers. They strike hard at the military bases. And everyone on Earth is left reeling, going, okay, when did this shit happen?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, again, remember, there were those subtle hints for a while. Like, Nod had that crashed spacecraft in Renegade. They had that strange ship in Tiberian Sun. So these didn't come out of nowhere. Just EA utilized them differently than how Westwood planned to. But it wasn't a bad thing.
Okay. So real quick then. So scrin was something that Westwood always planned, but did they ever get to implement it?
No, the most they ever got to was a couple of pieces of concept art. I don't think we can really dwell on the original plans for the scrin either, because honestly, they never came to fruition in that sense. And again, Command & Conquer 3 wasn't bad with them. And so the scrin land, and you have to split the campaigns again. Nod is trying to hold off and survive the scrin, even though everything's gone to shit. And here's the thing. They think Kane is dead. They thought Kane went down with Temple Prime. So now killing Qatar, the person you think is a traitor, is trying to rally Nod's forces and say, we need to fight back, and we need to join with GDI to survive.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend type of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, GDI is going crazy, going, okay, now there's aliens. Now there's Nod. Our cities are being blown to shit. Can we kill the aliens? Yes, we can kill the aliens. Get the hell out there and kill the aliens.
So then this is like the midway point of the game, it seems like, from what I can see. So you have all of these crazy plot points happen in the first half of the game. Mm-hmm. And then the second half is like, you know what? Fuck you. Aliens are now added to it. That's really what the game feels like. Not in like a...
I know.
That's
one of the great things about Command & Conquer. It smacks you across the face with a twist every time.
That's nuts.
for the rest of the game, you're fighting off the aliens, and you learn a few more key points about how the Earth kind of clawed its way back. It mentions, for example, there's a place called New Eden in Germany. It was the first region to be reclaimed from Tiberium from a yellow zone to a blue zone.
Okay.
And again, throughout the game, you see these little sections of Tiberium in the blue zones that are kind of walled off and being bombarded with sonic emitters. In Tiberium Sun, sonic weapons were a part of GDI's arsenal. Now it turns out that sonic weapons are the key to fighting back against Tiberium, because it
Okay.
shatters the crystal lattice that holds Tiberium together.
And then that's how they can reclaim parts of their Earth, parts
Exactly.
of the Earth. But does Tiberium have any effect on the Kryn?
On the it does
Scrin,
actually.
sorry.
It does, and that's the thing. But we don't see it yet, because the Scrin have their own small campaign after this. But I'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
But yeah, GDI and Nod, they fight through this whole mess, of course. Now, in the Nod campaign, it's not as friendly as the GDI. Like, GDI's campaign is just focused on fighting back the invaders. Nod's campaign, you're fighting the invaders, but you're also dealing with the traitors. When you finally get to Qatar, your intelligence officer is like, I don't know what she did. I don't know. It was all so crazy at the time. And Kane's like, be at peace, RJ. Your faith is not questioned. So what happens is you finally confront the traitor Qatar with Kane right there going, did you think I would be buried so easily? And Killian's like, I did what was best for the Brotherhood. And they bring in your intelligence officer whose faith is not questioned. He's just looking between Qatar and you and Kane. He's like, I don't know. It's all so confusing. Be at peace, RJ. Your
Mm-hmm.
faith has saved you. Do it. Boom, Qatar is dead. And so that kind of sets the tone for the rest of the Nod missions, which is like, your intelligence officer is now going, I do not envy you anymore, brother. Because you've basically broken his faith in Nod after all that's happened. He used to be a loyal Nod follower. Now he's just like, I'm done. Okay, this political shit, I can't do it anymore. I saw one of my heroes killed. I saw my prophet do the deed. I can't do this.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, on GDI's side of things, they finally figured out how to stop the invaders. It turns out that the Scrin are broadcasting a kind of special radiation from the original landing point for Tiberium on Earth in Italy, in the heart of the Mediterranean red zone. And here's the thing, like I said, red zones are completely alien. The Mediterranean doesn't exist anymore.
That it's so nuts with all the like I'm like, I know that place, and then it's like it's a lot to try to keep up with, but it's very interesting to hear all the different like just the way this war has reshaped the world in the
Mm.
worst possible ways.
Again, like Italy no longer exists. It's as a nation gone.
That's fucking wild.
Exactly. And so your mission as GDI is to take out this radiation center and stop it from transmitting this radiation that the Scrin power their units with, all of their units. Like, it gives them this actual way to operate. Meanwhile, as Nod, Kane gives you a task. The aliens have built towers, threshold towers, all around the world, deep in the heart of the red zones. Your mission in
Hmm.
Nod is to protect the tower until it is complete, until it can't be harmed by conventional means. And so, as Nod, you're fighting GDI and the invaders
Wait,
as you're trying.
why are they trying to protect the towers though if it was built by the Scrin?
Remember, Kane's goal is ascension.
So he's just doing his weird shit. Okay.
Exactly. Meanwhile, as GDI, you have to fight through a horde of Scrin, a horde of Nod. And here's the thing. You're given a choice. It's kind of a Bioshock-esque choice in that it just changes the ending cutscene, but it really has implications on who you are as a player.
Yeah.
Because one of your choices is to fight the whole thing conventionally. Just use GDI's own systems and weapons and all that. But Redmond Boyle also had his scientists working on a Tiberium weapon of their own for GDI.
Mm-hmm.
And the weapon could easily kill the Scrin, but it would also do immense damage to the region. And as your general points out, it would make Tiberium weapons a part of GDI's arsenal now, too.
So it's kind of playing off the whole nuclear armament race
Exactly.
from like
Do you go
from the
for the
Cold War.
easy route, or do you go for the way that try and staves off Armageddon for a few more decades?
That's a tough call because if it's going to happen at some point anyway, you'd rather be the one in charge with it.
Exactly. And so,
Ooh, that's a tough call. That's a
oh yeah.
very tough quandary.
And so the game ends with, for Nod, you protect the tower, it becomes invulnerable, and Kane introduces you as the newest member of his inner circle in the Brotherhood of Nod.
And that's how the game ends. The first Tiberium Wars ends.
GDI's ends one of two ways. Either Redmond Boyle is getting dressed for a press conference as Ironside just glares you down, going, "You have done more damage to this world than you could ever possibly imagine." And then Boyle's just going, "Commander, don't listen to him. You and I, we're going to change the world. Have some Colt 45.
Okay. And
But
that kind of
if you
leads
don't
into
use the
like,
weapon, Ironside's like, Boyle resigned in disgrace. He'd rather face retirement than accept the fact that he'd go on trial for weapons crimes. Good job, Commander." And so here's where we get into the Skrin campaign I mentioned earlier. And it turns out the Skrin have always been kind of involved. See, to them, Tiberium is their life source. Kane even
okay.
mentions in one of the cutscenes, they're not a force. They are a cult of addiction in the guise of a species.
Oh, so it's a bunch of, it's almost like the people who were turned by Tiberium. Like, I'm not saying it's the same thing, but like now they're just addicted to it. That's
Well,
interesting.
kind of. Like, these were the first. Kane makes it clear that this is the race that seeded Tiberium on Earth. Their operation is to basically drain a planet through Tiberium. Remember,
Oh,
Tiberium
wow.
leaches out of the soil, it leaches resources, and the Skrin harvest it. They consider it their food source. It's their life force. They call it ichor, for God's sakes. And in the Greek, ichor is the blood of the gods.
What a stupid fucking plan, because at some point they're going to run out of planets.
Here's the thing. In Westwood's original plan, they hit Mars first.
How does Westwood have like a document about like
There's a
what
Command
they're,
and Conquer Bible that was released soon after they got bought out by EA, yes.
oh, that's so cool.
So
All
if you,
right.
to you listeners, if you want to look that up, it's a good read.
That's really
But
cool.
for this purpose, the Skrin are just a mining operation. They weren't even expecting there to still be nations on Earth. Usually, when they roll into a planet, it's in the last stages of dying out. A Tiberium explosion like that only happens once there's a critical liquid Tiberium mass.
Oh,
Kane summoned them there early.
and did he do that to like wipe them out, or did
No,
he?
he wanted that tower I mentioned.
He just so he knew they would build a tower.
Exactly.
Where? How does he know all this shit?
Exactly.
Oh, and that's what you find out as the series goes on.
Well, we would have, but we'll get to that in a minute. So yeah, the Skrin realize they can't take on mankind. All they do is just, okay, we're here to mine Tiberium. We're going to do what we can. We're going to occupy the monkeys, and we're going to get these towers built so we can get the hell off of this rock.
Okay.
And they even mention, like, when they scan Kane, DNA matrix unknown.
Interesting. So wait, when did Kane first start seeing signs of being an alien, or like having some type of weird thing going on about him?
Well, he always had a weird thing going on about him, but we really started to see traces of that in Tiberium's Sun again, where he started mentioning how Tiberium first came to Earth, how he knows about all this stuff and this advanced technology. And again, in Renegade, you see an ancient Egyptian tomb with scorpions in it. And you see in a Nod temple a depiction of him killing Abel.
Oh, so it kind of, are you Cain and Abel?
Why do you think they named him Kane?
I mean, I think it's just a name. Doesn't mean they're going to pull the full biblical thing. So is it really like they're pulling in some biblical shit with this? Like
Oh, they pulled in some
possibly?
biblical shit with this.
That's interesting. All right, so continue on. Continue
And
on.
so the Skrin campaign ends with your superior Skrin going higher than you, asking, okay, what are we going to do about Earth? And the Skrin overlord basically says three terrifying words in this deep Soto voice: Earth will fall.
And that's the end of of this game here, or
Yes,
what?
and that was the end of CNC 3. And so there was an expansion pack, Kane's Wrath. And here's the thing.
Yes.
Kane's Wrath was noted as being episode 1 Kane's Wrath. So they clearly had plans for future installments.
And they just never came about, did it?
Yeah, so what happened with Kane's Wrath was you follow Kane as a side story underneath CNC 3, if that makes sense.
It happens in conjunction with it.
It's a
It's
parallel
happening. It's a
story.
parallel story. Okay.
So you start that expansion pack a few years after the Firestorm Crisis. Kane comes to you, and you don't know what's going on, but he's talking to you like he knows you one-on-one. He's talking like, They are quick to bury me, but I will rise. And so you fight through the Nod campaign, rebuilding Nod, reunifying Nod. And again, the acting is great in the full motion cutscenes. Like there's a character, Brother Marcion, and he passes himself off as a prophet. Like, and there was given to him a mouth that spoke great lies, and his name was Kane. And so he's going the full biblical too. Like if he sees you as welcome, weary traveler, come, make yourself at home. Your mockings mock you as one of the false prophet's followers. Turn back now, or you will be destroyed. And
And
then,
so, and Kane sees all this. Like this guy
yes,
is
but they don't
saying
know
this.
Kane's alive at this point.
And where? Sorry, and where is this at again? Like where is he meeting this preacher man
You meet Marcion in Australia.
in Australia? Okay.
And so, again, in this, before Scene 3, Nod is still scattered. There's still warlords fighting for dominance. And Marcion, and they all think Kane is dead. Until Marcion is captured, brought before Kane. If I had known, if I had been given a sign, you wouldn't have betrayed me. And here's one of the coolest moments of CNC3. For most of the start of this expansion pack, Kane's had what looks like cybernetic implants on the top of his head.
Mm-hmm.
But when he meets Marcion, he just peels back. It turns out it's just plastic. He peels it back and he starts laughing at the camera in this great supervillain way. And it's so cool. Because he just pulled the wool over everyone's eyes. He's like, ha ha, I got you, bitches.
So, all right. So, what's the whole premise of Kane's Wrath then? Is it just
Basically, it turns out you are another AI. So remember, in Tiberium's Sun, there was Cabal, computer-assisted biologically augmented life form. Well, it turns out you are another AI known as Legion. Gee, isn't that biblical? You are an AI built by Kane. It's kind of like a backup for Cabal. And you act in Kane's personal stead. And you're also being monitored by a loyal AI expert Nod. And here's the thing, she had her family wiped out by Cabal's forces. And she's working on AI now.
And so now she has a vendetta against the.
It's a bit of a one. Like she's also loyal to Kane, but she doesn't quite trust Legion. And it turns out, remember how I said that one of Nod's generals betrayed Kane?
Yes.
It turns out that was organized by this AI expert because she saw General Qatar doubting Kane.
Wait, so she's the one that reveals that Qatar is the one doubting Kane.
No, she framed Qatar for the betrayal.
Oh.
She's that loyal a follower of Kane that anyone who questions his divine guidance is a traitor and must be killed immediately.
So when Qatar gets killed, you find out there was no. Through this, you find out it actually wasn't a betrayal.
Exactly, and even
she never
Kane,
actually did betray.
At that moment, you see Kane's face, and even he's shocked. He's like, "You had me kill my best general because she had a doubt," and that just. Again, it's a great moment, and then the campaign ends with Legion being resurrected because the AI expert put a virus in. She was fearful Legion was going to take control like Cabal again.
Yeah.
And so the campaign ends with you being brought back, and you're being sent to save the Tacitus from GDI. Because Kane says they've basically been poking at it like a kid with a stick at a wounded lion. It's like, hey, what does it do? What does it do? What does it do? And Kane's going, okay, you're about to set it off. Stop. And so the mission ends with you taking back the Tacitus, bringing it back to Kane. It's still unstable. Like in the ending cutscene, it's flashing, it's sparking, it's about to go critical.
Yeah.
But then you merge with the Tacitus as Legion.
I need to play like
exactly.
I'm looking through this, right? And I'm remembering bits and pieces of the story from when we first spoke last year, and it's like I'm just going through this all in my head. I'm like, I need to just sit down, set aside some time, and just play through the campaigns of these games.
You really do. And now Kane's Wrath also added something that was kind of clever in a gameplay perspective. They added in a kind of, I guess you call it a Risk style multiplayer map.
Okay.
A global conquest is what they call it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like you build up a small little strike force and you go out into the world and you battle other strike forces, multiplayer or single player. And it was a bad concept. It just felt like it was a little meh.
Mm-hmm.
Like it could have worked, but for some reason it just felt like it didn't strike the right tones. I really can only explain it as like, it was a great effort, guys, but you should have done this sooner.
Yeah.
Because by that point, everyone was going esports.
And I mean, I guess that is really when esports, excuse me, really started taking off. And now,
Mm-hmm.
like, I mean, it sucks because Age of Empires is the big one, like in terms of the
Yeah.
RTS world. I mean, it always was really big, but like,
After Command and Conquer died.
well, I mean, it's not even that. It's just that they haven't. Microsoft has been really good at promoting the Age of Empires within the esports community, and obviously EA is not
Exactly.
at promoting a Command and Conquer. And I'm sure
So
there's shit that like it would be there still would be like it might not be as popular now, but it's still
well,
I
here's the
think
thing.
it's
Like,
worth.
there's still broadcasters. Like one of the great ones is Cybert on YouTube. He
Hmm.
still broadcasts CNC matches played for CNC 3, Generals, Red Alert 3.
Oh, that's
So there's
cool.
still people playing, and there are still community competitions and tournaments where you can win actual prizes. So it's not dead.
It's
But
just not really promoted by EA, which doesn't help
exactly.
grow it.
Like there used to be something called Battlecast Primetime, where EA had two of their developers just sit down. Hello and welcome to Battlecast Primetime. Here's the lineup for the night, and it was actually built like a sports kind of like replay, like ESPN would do with Sports Center, and it was pretty clever. Actually, I enjoyed it.
I'll have to check that out then, because it's a lot harder to get a feel for what an RTS is unless you watch,
Or
like,
play.
I'll watch play and like watching professional players play. Like if you're watching a broadcast of it, not watching them actually play, that's hard to follow because they're moving so fucking
Oh
fast. It's
yeah.
impossible to see what all their commands are. But like if you're watching a broadcast of it, it's nice because then it like the commentators give you an idea of like
Mhm.
strategy and all
And
this
they were
other good
fun with
stuff.
it too. Like EALA's guys understood that Command and Conquer is driven by the fans, and they had some fun with it too. Like they would get into characters like these sportscasters and dress up in the suits and ties and do all the whole ESPN kind of
Yeah,
style stuff.
yeah.
It was really fun to watch.
So
And
after,
so,
sorry, I was just gonna say after after Kane's Wrath, then you have Red Alert 3 come out,
yes, and
and
that's
there's three different parts to that.
yes. So strap the hell in, folks. We are getting into campity fucking camp. So I told you before last time that if Tiberium is kind of the grounded older sibling who files their taxes and has a good business and goes home to the wife and kids every day, Red Alert is the freewheeling bisexual younger brother that just goes wild in the city clubs and just does Molly Percocet every night.
Go on.
So in Red Alert 3, you start off with, of course, the great Tim Curry being a Soviet general.
Spice.
Exactly. It's at basically the end of Red Alert 2, where Russia is falling to pieces, and they walk into the Premier's office. The Premier is gone! The coward has already fled. It is the end of the motherland, comrade. Not yet. And he pulls up a bust of Lenin, presses a big red button, and opens a secret bookcase elevator.
Okay.
And then you go down to a secret lab. No, it is not ready. What's not ready? My time machine. Now remember, Red Alert was started because Einstein went back in time to kill Hitler in 1923. So you're
Yes.
already in an alternate universe.
You're already in an alternate history. So
These
now,
three Soviets go back to Einstein's conference at Solvay in 1927 and kill him. So
so
now
now
you're in an
Hitler.
alternate timeline of an alternate timeline. And now you take power as the Soviet Union, led by Premier Cherdenko, played by Tim Curry, who was at his Tim Curryest.
The most curry of curry. Go on.
Exactly. It's a spicy curry. And so, at first, it looks like the Soviets are going to take over the world, of course.
Of
But then,
course.
but then they're attacking. We need to fall back. Who is attacking? The Empire of the Rising Sun, of course. We now have two mortal enemies. And that's when Red Alert 3 just goes fucking batshit insane. It just takes some angel dust, shoves it down your throat, and says, "Here, you want the camp? You want the camp? Take the camp, motherfucker!"
There's so much. I'm gonna have to tone that down so much. That's so much peaking.
I'm sorry, but
It's
it's
okay.
insane. Like, literally, the intro cinematic to Red Alert 3 has all this anime shit going on as you're already fighting with the diesel punk Soviets and the ray gun punk allies, and it's just fucking ridiculous. Like, a samurai rushes out of a transport with a beam katana. A beam katana.
They really now is this game well received by the fan base?
Well kinda. Like, here's the thing. We loved the camp. The camp was great. It was a brilliant display of camp. And it was still in character for each of the factions. The Allies are still like, we are the Allied nations, led by Governor Swan from the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, and we are the stalwart defenders of justice and the
Jonathan
liberty of people.
Price.
Yep.
Jonathan Price is in this.
Yep. He plays
Elliot Carver himself. Yeah, it's a James Bond villain.
He plays the Allied Marshal General Bingham, Field Marshal Bingham. He's a proper British gentleman who wants to end the war with the Soviets. And then you have J.K. Simmons as President Howard T. Ackerman. You want to secure the borders? No walls, no guns, attack dogs. That's right, fucking attack dogs. Send them after those illegal immigrants.
All the insane stereotypes. That's really funny.
And then you have the Soviets, who are, of course, led by Tim Curry, whose grandfather was a Cossack. And Cossacks do not die easily. We will take the fight to the enemies of Russia. And then you'll have the scientist, Professor Zelensky, who is trying to survive in this mad world he's created and cannot bear the shame. And then you have the Empire of the Rising Sun, who is every weeaboo's wet dream ever fucking made. I know. I served on Okinawa. I know fucking weebs. They're led by the Emperor, who is played by George Takei, who is fucking having the goddamn time of his life. He's literally just going insane with these insane Japanese stereotypes. Your army is as weak as your dollar. You are made of stupid. And it's just this fucking insane, campy lunacy that didn't quite kill it on the gameplay.
That sucks.
Yeah, again, so here's the thing. Red Alert 3 did stay key to Command & Conquer Red Alert's core. Like, for example, it brought back naval combat again, and it made it fun again. It made it a key part of the experience. But it took away some of what made Command & Conquer good as well. Like, remember, in previous Command & Conquer games, you had these vast fields of resources to harvest. Ore and gems and Tiberium just spread out across the map. This time, you had fixed ore mines.
Okay.
And your harvesters didn't just rove the map looking for resources. They just went in straight lines back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, just kind of being there. Resources aren't much of a factor this time. Like, protecting your gatherers isn't a factor anymore. And some of the units felt pretty simplified, too. Like, granted, I know that sounds silly to say, like, in RTS you have the rock, paper, scissors of the tactical stuff. But then you had, in RA3, you had stuff like, oh, this is a boat that, surprise, can also walk on water. And then there's like, this is an airplane, but it's also a submarine. It's an airplane, a submarine, an airplane, a submarine. And so it kind of felt like this was definitely being geared towards esports.
Okay.
Because they also had a mechanic in the game where you didn't play alone anymore. You always had an allied commander at your beck and call in the single-player campaign who could, if you wanted to, wink, wink, be played by a friend online. Wink, wink. And
okay.
The AI commander you fought with wasn't bad. They were just kind of there to like take up space and tie up your AI opponent. But for the most part, they were kind of lame in the gameplay story. Like, the actors they got were Randy Couture is one of the allied commanders, for example.
Really?
Yes, Randy Couture, the man himself. He plays
MMA
this hard-laced American commando type. Come on, let's go take those Reds.
Okay.
And
that's that.
Exactly.
The type of talent they get on these games is astounding to me.
Well, here's some irony for you. Agent Tanya, the allied commando hero.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. The Allies are always focused on science and technology and being the high-tech saviors. In this game, Agent Tanya is played by Jenny McCarthy. Noted anti-vaxxer Jenny McCarthy plays the Allied Nations Commando.
What?
You look like you're having an existential crisis hearing this.
I am, because I don't... She's stupid, and then they put... what a choice. Anyway...
RA3 also kind of went full bore with like all the female characters are basically pinup girls. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, okay, they're and again, I really hope like the female actors like went full in like, oh yeah, this is gonna be fun, because like they put up pinup pictures of the female characters before the game was released, And I
Mhm.
didn't mind, but it's also kind of like, wasn't this a war game, guys?
That's such a strange choice. That's as bad as casting Denise Richards as a
A
nuclear
nuclear physicist.
physicist. Yeah, it doesn't
And
really
again,
work all that well.
I remember how we talked about in the last video, like these were strong female characters who could like take a hit and fight through the war zones and all that. And you were like, well, it's not bad that they own their sexuality. But this time it felt more like they were pandering to a very creepy basement dwelling demographic.
Yeah, there's a difference between owning your sexuality and then like making it the explicit purpose of your character. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? And once again, that if that wasn't the norm, that would probably be fine. But unfortunately, it is the norm with a
And it was
lot of
very
stuff.
obvious what they were doing. It was kind of like, okay, guys, I like what you're doing here, but can we not do it in this context? Leave it to the
Yeah,
fanfic authors.
that's that's funny. Anyway,
Like the fan
go
artists
on.
will handle this, guys. You don't need to. You're the actual company.
Yeah.
So the three campaigns are honestly, oh boy, the campaigns also weren't really much to write home about. Like they were still solid, and they were still wacky as hell. Like one of the missions was you're swimming around southern France as Agent Tanya, blowing up dreadnoughts and fighting swimming war bears as you fight to free Allied command from their capture by the Soviets. Or if you're playing as the Empire of the Rising Sun, you have to defend your naval base at Pearl Harbor from being attacked by the Americans.
What?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And
Interesting.
again, the missions themselves were kind of funny in that respect. Like George Takei orders you to attack Hollywood. Think about that for a minute.
That's a little funny.
Exactly.
That's
But
pretty funny.
overall, like, I guess you can say the campaign was kind of a letdown too, because at least to me, it didn't feel like it was as in depth as it should have been.
Okay.
Like compared to CNC3, where you're getting this all this intrigue and drama and just these great performances,
Mhm.
it was campy in hell and funny as hell, but it was also kind of like you're left wanting more. It's like the difference between a fine home cooked stew and a quick burger you get from McDonald's. They both taste good, but one fills you up a little better than the other.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of disappointing because I know the Red Alert series was a lot of people's favorites for a long time,
Oh
just
yeah.
because, like, they it was that alternate history and that the people like campy shit,
Oh, we
and
do. Like we loved the camp. Like don't get me wrong. Part
oh
of what
yeah,
made Red Alert 3 great was how fucking ridiculously campy it is. Again, you have George Takei as the Emperor of Japan swinging a katana around and going, oh, with enough time, a man may master the mental. With enough time, a warrior may master the physical. Only the true samurai can master both. And he's just spewing out this like faux ancient wisdom as the Emperor of Japan. And again, like each faction is well within character. Like the Allied characters are like, we're going to take the fight to those Reds and we're going to make them pay for invading our countries. And the Soviets are all, we will win the fight for Mother Russia and bring communism to the people of the world. And of course, the Empire's Rising Sun is like, we will fight with honor and bring glory to the names of our ancestors.
hmm
And honestly, they kind of. I can't speak for this personally, but I feel like they kind of made sure that the Empire of the Rising Sun was so over the top. It was made very clear they were not trying to be racist. It was just like, guys, we're just having fun with this.
I mean, I feel like George Takei more than anyone would have spoken up too. Like, you know what I
I,
mean?
I, I certainly feel that way too, because like if George Takei had felt like they were being assholes about it, like if anyone would have said anything, he would have done it.
Yeah, and like, I mean, he's
For
been
those
very,
of you who
especially in
don't
the
know,
last couple
George
of years.
Takei has always been at the forefront of fighting these stereotypes about Asian Americans and Japanese Americans, and he did serve time, unfortunately, in a Japanese internment camp. So he
hmm
knows his shit about
He
what
wrote a
is and isn't.
musical about it. He did a whole musical about it.
Exactly.
I
So
can't remember the name of it. I'm gonna have to. I think it's. I'm gonna look it up right now, just for those who are curious. But yeah,
if George
he.
Takei said it was okay, it was probably okay. But it's also just so ridiculous it can't be. Like, again, the American president is played by J.K. Simmons as Howard T. Ackerman, and he's just ridiculously over the top. We're going to take those Reds, we're going to fight them on the beaches, we're going to fight them on the air, we're going to fight them on the sea. And did I say we're going to fight them on the beaches? We're going to fight them on the beaches.
Allegiance. That's the name of the. That's the name of the musical. It's Allegiance.
Thank you. But yeah, and so it also goes crazy because, like, of course, the Soviet campaign, you eventually get betrayed by Tim Curry. Like, oh, it's so great. Like, he's just, when you finally get betrayed, he's just sitting there sipping tea. Commander, you have done well to remove my enemies, but now you must be disposed of. And you get betrayed by Tim Curry, and it's awesome.
God bless Tim Curry.
And
I
in the
that
Allied
poor man.
campaign, the American president loses his mind, and he decides that instead of allying with the Soviets against the Empire of the Rising Sun, I'm going to destroy those Reds. I'm going to launch a superweapon in Moscow. We're going to stop. We're not going to become communist ourselves. Gee, wonder what that sounds like.
Yeah.
So you have to stop the American president from firing a superweapon out of the heads of Mount Rushmore, by the way.
Wow, it's honestly fucking eerie. That would be an option. Like, oh yeah, we'll shoot a nuke out of it. That's how.
Oh no, it's not a nuke. It's a giant laser beam.
Even better.
The laser beam rises out of the top of Washington's head as his dome piece just he feels like. And and here's the best part: your co-commander for that mission is Randy Couture's All-American Commando. Well, looks like we got to stop our crazy president. And the Empire of the Rising Sun campaign is just like, it's the clash between like the traditionalist emperor and his futuristic son, and it's so crazy. And here's the thing: in the Empire of the Rising Sun campaign, they replaced the American president with a robot double.
What?
Yes, I know. Like they don't even try and build up to it. They don't even try and pretend it's going to happen. They don't try to give you any hints. No foreshadowing. It's just, oh, by the way, the American president's a robot. Excuse me.
I need to play this game just for the sheer insanity. Either that or watch like a clip
and here's
of all
the
the
thing.
cutscenes.
At the end of the Allied campaign, which is when you hear that immortal line, I'm going to the one place that has not been corrupted by capitalism. Space! At the end of the Allied campaign, after you take out the American president, after all is said and done, David Hasselhoff becomes president of the United States.
Even better. Oh my God.
He's President Hoff Hassel. And
that's his name?
And he believes that once we give the glories of consumerism to the Soviets, they will come with us and join in a peaceful future.
It's fucking like these writers are absolute geniuses for the satire they're putting up. Because the only place that we can't be corrupted by capitalism space, which
and now Elon Musk and fucking
I was just going to say, I'm like, somewhat ironically, that's
like the community had a field day with those first launches. Believe me.
Oh, that's really funny.
And there was one expansion for Red Alert 3 as well.
Well, there's two that I saw. There was
two that you saw. That's
Uprising and Commander's Challenge.
Okay, Commander's Challenge is not really so much of an expansion pack or DLC. Exactly. Uprising is the one.
Also features Uprising also features a mode called Commander's Challenge.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a mode. It's not even an extra expansion.
Yep. And so, in Uprising, you get 3 additional mini campaigns and another mini campaign following the commando for the Empire of the Rising Sun, Yuriko Omega. And Yuriko Omega is a psychic schoolgirl. Sato.
That's who's on the cover of the box too. It almost looks like she's got like Sailor Moon like things like next to her pigtails. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. They like I said, it's a fucking weeb wet dream with this. That's
really funny. Let's move along though real quick.
Yes. So here's where we get to the sad times.
So that's crazy because like Red Alert 3 Uprising came out in 2009, and then Command and Conquer 4 came out in 2010.
Yeah,
so real quick, just the last couple games in the series, we'll just read them off quick. Command and Conquer 4 Tiberian Twilight.
Ugh.
Command and Conquer Tiberium Alliances.
Fuck off.
And then the Ultimate Collection, and then the stupid free-to-play phone game Rivals.
Oh.
And then we have the Remaster Collection, which actually is good.
Yes. Okay, so yeah,
which just came out
rapid fire
2 years ago.
So yeah, CNC4 we were all excited for. Like we were promised a resolution to Kane's story to the Tiberium series, and we were all like, "Oh man, what's gonna fucking happen?" Okay. Here's the first preview. Kane gets flown into a meeting of GDI's highest council. He holds out the task and says, brothers, sisters, I have a proposition for you. And you're like, oh my God, what's going to happen? And so the game starts out. Kane has allied with GDI. Okay, kind of weird, but then again, Tiberium's taken over the world again. Maybe he wants to stop it from going full crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, part of Nod has gone against Kane. Makes sense. He's been preaching against GDI for decades, and now he's teaming up with him. I'd be kind of pissed too.
Yeah.
Still makes sense. Hang on. What's this? GDI's military uniforms don't look sci-fi anymore. They look like they're modern-day U.S. military digital camo. Okay, odd choice. We were going sci-fi for a while. Maybe this is just a costuming thing. I don't know. Let's roll with it for a while. Hang on. Why the hell does Kane look like a fucking emo party kid from the early 2000s? What's with the fucking head? What? Kane? How are you dressing like this? What's going on? Hang on a second. What's this gameplay? This isn't gameplay like Command & Conquer. I'm having to seize a territory point. I'm not harvesting resources. I'm taking a fucking flag. What's going on here? What do you mean I can't build bases? What do you mean I can't build all the units I want? What do you mean the single-player campaign is only like 9 missions goddamn long for each fucking walkthrough? Hang on a second. EA, what the hell are you trying to pull? Hang on a second. Pull off the Scooby-Doo mask. Esports! I know your audience is probably looking at me going, what the fuck is this guy going on about?
But well, they can't see you if that makes you feel better.
It doesn't. If you gotta suffer through my ugly mug, so do you. Anyway.
Well, I can't see you either now. Your camera's not even turned on.
Yeah, but you know what I look like. They should suffer like you do.
No, I was going to say the way you make it sound for Command & Conquer 4 is it reminds me of what other RTSs were doing at the time with, instead of focusing on resource gathering, your resources were gathered through command points. Like you had to gain ground and that determined your resource rate, which is fine.
Yeah, that's other games, that's fine. Like Company of Heroes did that extremely well.
Yeah, exactly. But like when you're expecting not the same old, but like the same relative format that you've been used to for I don't know, almost 20 years. Like that is a big, like
that's a slap in the face.
That like it.
Bear in mind, by this point, EA had destroyed EALA. There was no more EALA. They killed it.
It'd be different if they had changed up the format dramatically between Command & Conquer 1 and 2, or sorry, not 2.
If they had made changes over the course of the series.
If they had made somewhat dramatic changes over the course of the series, because then people would be like, all right, it's kind of like what, Mario games to an extent do, like
exactly.
What's specifically 3D Mario games. All right, what's the new thing for this new Mario game? And
but they didn't do that. They didn't build up.
No,
there had always been a slow continuity creep, but it was always the same continuity that you expected.
Actually, I was just going to say another prime example of this, if we're going to go with parallel things, Final Fantasy and the Dragon Quest series.
Don't play Final Fantasy, don't play Dragon Quest, but I'll let you go.
You don't need to know much about the series themselves. Final Fantasy, all you have to know is that every game, the battle systems are for the most part completely different from each other. So you're always learning a new system each game, because that's kind of the fun of it. It's like, what are they trying different this time? Dragon Quest, it's very small incremental changes because the fan base is very conservative. I'm not talking about politically. I just mean in terms of
they know what they want.
They know what they want. And Command & Conquer is kind of like that, and that's not in a bad way. Dragon Quest obviously is a very popular series. Command & Conquer is a very popular series, and when you don't change things up after a while, people have expectations, and if you change things all the time, people still have those expectations. In fact, I would argue if you're used to change and then it's the same old, you're tired of it. But you're like, well, that's stupid. They just did that before.
Well, remember what I said in the last episode? They had tried to do some new things to say to the fandom, see, we're listening to you. We're trying these new things. And the fandom said, okay, we don't really like these new things. Maybe go back to the old way. Okay, we'll go back to the old way. And again, CNC 3, we liked it. Red Alert 3, okay, kind of weird. Command & Conquer 4, okay, fuck you, EA.
And then it just goes downhill even further from there.
No. Here's the thing. There were other projects planned. There was one project called Command & Conquer Comanche. I honestly forget if it's Comanche or Comancho, but basically it was supposed to take place in a universe where America got invaded and you're fighting with these rebel groups against the invaders, and kind of a Red Dawn kind of thing going on here, which wasn't bad. I mean, it could have probably been a lot better than that game Homefront, for God's sake.
I bought Homefront thinking it was going to be really good, and it was just a shitty Call of Duty with Korea.
North Korea too. So
yeah, North Korea.
And
Once again,
again,
playing on the common fears of that time, which it's
and
kind
that's the
of
thing. Command Show was going to use China, so that's where Command and Conquer kind of got it right. They're like, let's make a power that's actually going to be threatening, maybe.
yeah. I mean, it's
And
there.
another
There's a
project that was
thing.
dropped was just Command and Conquer Tiberium. And Tiberium was going to be a first person shooter in the vein of Renegade. You're taking on the role of a GDI commander who's going in with a Nod prophetess and his team trying to get to the threshold tower on the west coast of the United States. And it would have had like, I remember there was like, your weapon would have been modular. Like it would have been like, it's an assault rifle. Oh, now it's a sniper rifle. Oh, now it's a grenade launcher. Oh, now it's back to
Mhm.
a rifle. And you saw there was an alpha gameplay footage put out, and it honestly looked good. And you could tell like it had a chance. It had a shot. It could have been a contender.
It could have been a
But
contender.
then EA came and fucked it all up.
I mean, that's what EA does. No, it's
Yeah.
messed up. It's funny. As much as shit as we have given EA for decades now, it's kind of funny that out of the two shitty big third party publishers, Activision and EA, who would have thought Activision would have been the shittier of the two?
Well, behind closed doors, certainly.
That's why I'm. That's
You
all
can
that
say what you will
matters.
about EA's shittiness, but they were open about it. It's like, we're fucked, man. We don't know what you expect us to do about it. We know who we are.
I was going to say it's interesting though that they were making a game with China as the villain, because there's a thing that I read an article, or I read like an opinion piece about this, where it's like, back during the Cold War, and this does tie into Command and Conquer, I
Mhm.
promise. A lot of the movies were against Russian enemies, because the Cold War, every that was
But some of
what
those movies also humanized the Russians in a way.
humanized them. It also but it showed, I think of James Bond. James Bond would be nothing without all the Cold War stuff, all the Cold
Hmm.
War espionage, right? It was preying on, it was giving people comfort
From Russia with love.
during uncertain times, right? Hollywood now, the big threat to the US is China, and
Oh,
they don't touch
I'm
it
gonna give you a bit
because
of a
there's
headspace here, coming from the military as recently as I did. We are aware of the threat that China can pose, but at the same time, China knows that they rely on us to be their consumer. Remember,
that's
they got
true.
all the factories; they're the ones counting on us to be the buyer. So it's not so much a military Cold War as it is a socio-economic one.
And you know what? As long as there's no military engagement, I can deal with that.
I
But
believe me, I can deal with that too. Remember, on
that
Okinawa, you're always bombarded. Remember, China's right over there,
right
man.
next door. But I was just going to say, it's interesting that Hollywood isn't making movies about this current like Cold War,
Of the consumption China now
of the
has.
yes, because now China is such a huge market, they don't want to lose that. And with the police state that country is in,
Mhm.
pretty much, they won't allow any content in that is like critical
It's a
of the
shame.
motherland.
It's a shame President Xi won't be able to listen to these podcasts you make anymore.
Oh no, so heartbreaking. Much
But anyway,
break.
and that ties in with another thing. They had another Generals game planned, Command and Conquer Generals 2. This
Okay.
time you were playing as either the European Union, the People's Liberation Army, or the GLA. And I don't know why they took the United States out of it. If I had to guess, they kind of figured, okay, maybe America needs a break from saving the day all the damn time.
Just get butt out of people's business for once.
So, and again, it looked solid. I saw some of the preview footage of it. It looked like they were going back. Like you can build a base, you can build all the units you want, you can have some fun with it again.
Yeah.
But then news started coming down. Like for example, oh by the way, the single player campaign is a separate DLC. I'm sorry, what? Oh yeah, and you have to buy certain units. You don't just get them right out of the box. I'm sorry, what? Oh,
Are
and
you shitting?
by
Wow.
the way, you can only buy each separate commander for each separate microtransaction. Okay, what the high holy fuck now?
I'm so happy that people have pushed so far back on the microtransaction shit. Where
Exactly.
now they're still in there, but it's either cosmetic
Or it's
or
actually part of a bundle.
it's actual legit. Like I had no issue with like I played Borderlands a lot when
Mhm.
you'd pay $15 for a DLC, but you get like 3 4 hours of gameplay out of that.
Exactly.
So that
It's an actual expansion pack, not just here's
I'm
$5 for a digital keychain.
and now the new grift is NFTs.
Oh,
Yay.
let's not go into that one. Believe me, I can
No,
go for hours.
I could rant about that for I was actually going to do, this is a little behind the scenes for listeners. I was going to do a bonus episode for Patreon for patrons called Still Ranting, and I was going to rant all about NFTs, but I couldn't. I just I didn't have enough structure, and also it was like 11:30 at night when I tried recording it. So, and I was like, I can't get loud right now.
Don't
So,
podcast while angry.
well, I can edit it back later; it'll be fine. But
So yeah, that was like
anyway,
when they released that Alliance's mobile game. That was the final nail in the goddamn coffin for Command and Conquer, as far as a lot of us were concerned.
mhm.
We hated what they did with Tiberian Twilight because they didn't even give a
Well,
satisfying
wasn't
conclusion.
Tiberium Alliance is a browser game, and then Rivals was the mobile game?
They both sucked.
Go
But
on.
here's the thing. What really pissed us off was in Tiberian Twilight, we had been promised a conclusion to the story of Kane and the Brotherhood. And what did we get? All we got was Kane ripping out a cybernetic eye and then
Hmm.
walking into a purple portal, and that's it. That's all we got as an ending. We got
That's
nothing else.
crazy.
We were livid. Like, and then they had the gall to have a little ending snippet where they're interviewing a man on the street who was actually played by Joe Coopman's brother, hilariously enough. And they ask him, "Do you think Kane is dead? Kane dead? Pfft, yeah, right." And so it's like, oh, now we see your fucking play, EA. Fuck you.
What is honestly interesting about EA's run as the heads of Command and Conquer is that they had almost a solid decade of not quite a solid decade. It was
But they
but like
didn't
from
suck as
but
bad.
like for 5 or 6 years they made really decent, like good to decent games, like,
Exactly. And that's what
Generals. Tiberium Wars is really, like, from what you're telling me, seems really good. Red Alert 3 not as great, but the story
still
and like
solid.
the camp makes up for it. And then they just kind of said fuck it. And after I mean,
Oh,
you can
this is
tell
Tiberian Twilight was released after StarCraft 2 came out.
and StarCraft 2 just like owned it, like,
Exactly.
incredible. And it's just insane because, like, you just look at it and you look at the output of Command and Conquer games, right? From 95, and I'm going to count the expansions from 95 to 2010, so 15 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 different releases. 19 if you count Command and Conquer 4. So 19 releases in 15 years. And that's not including the Commander's Challenge thing, because like we said, that's not really an expansion or not really a
Mm-hmm.
game, it's just a mode. And I also did not include the First Decade bundle from
Because it's
2006
a bundle, yeah.
because it's a bundle.
And
So
that's
that's
what I'm saying. Like,
technically two more things that you could just kind of ish add to it, but
and
more
here's
the
the thing too.
bundle than
For a
Commander's
while,
Challenge.
EA had a good relation with the community too. Like, I got the. Hang on, let me go check my shelf. For example, I'll keep talking, but like on my shelf, I have Command and Conquer: The First Decade. And you know what they included in the first decade? They included a whole DVD of fan-made shorts and content, and they made sure
Wow.
we knew we were being acknowledged. They knew we made Command and Conquer what it was, and
That's
that's why it hurt.
heartbreaking.
Yeah, that's why it hurt
Like,
when
not
we.
like, that's just heartbreaking that they included that. I mean, that's a good thing they included that, and then they just fucked everything up because I understand with any creative medium that you want to make a living off of, there's a business side to it. There has to be. I don't care,
Oh, we
like,
knew that too. We were well aware that
but
EA.
like
Yeah,
I have the decade thing as well, and
yeah.
I'm curious if I have that. If I have that, I should hopefully.
And again, like,
Um,
here's the thing for me: like, EA knew what the fans liked and what we loved about Command and Conquer, and we weren't blind to the fact that it was a business. Like, remember, we had seen Westwood try and stretch its legs a little bit and kind of stumble, and so we were well aware that if it comes down to making money or making the series, the business will go for making money. We weren't blind to that. We didn't
yeah.
necessarily like it all the
But you
time,
have
but
to
we
find
knew.
that balance. You always have to find that balance between, like, making money and being good for the consumers, because that's how, like, if you think short term, then you fuck over consumers. If you think long term, yeah, you might not make as much money right away, but the longevity of the amount of money you're able to
Exactly.
make is that much long. It's just so dumb. And
It's
it's
basically
the
the venture capital bullshit, like this vulture capital idea of like, let's make a quick buck and just leave everyone else to pick up the pieces.
exactly. NFTs. Uh,
So that's why Command and Conquer 4 really hurt us in a lot of ways. Like, we had been promised a resolution, and what we were left with was just there.
so even besides the gameplay being meh, like meh to bad,
The
but
story was also ridiculous.
this,
Like we
that
didn't feel
sucks.
like GDI was GDI. We didn't feel like Nod was Nod. Like, we weren't, like, again, it wasn't like we weren't blind to being ripped from the headlines, but this time none of the characters made sense. None of their actions made sense.
Hmm.
They brought back the Forgotten for like 5 seconds as like a little NPC enemy faction that really had no importance on the plot. Oh, and the Scrin might as well not have existed. Like, they're built up as this big thing in CNC3, Earth will fall. But nope, no sign, no trace, no nothing. Oh, and by the way, now Tiberium magically doesn't hurt the world anymore because there's a Tiberium control network. Fine, we could have lived with that, but give us some fucking build-up or maybe some backstory.
When you have a game universe that's as deep and as when there's that much lore. I mean, think of it this way: we've spent almost I forget how long the first episode was now, but let's just say it was like 2 hours, right?
And we
I think
spent
it
a
was
while.
actually I think it was longer than 2 hours, but I'll look it up while we're talking. But if we go for 2 hours, we've spent 3.5 hours summarizing the lore,
And while still talking
summarizing,
about gameplay.
and still talking about gameplay. Like that's so much lore, and when you have that much, there's an expectation that, like, some people like are of the mindset show don't tell. Actually, we only did an hour and a half on the first episode, so we're
But,
actually
like,
at
it's
this.
still like, yes, that whole show don't tell idea. And again, that's why Command and Conquer as an RTS works, because you show how the factions work. You show how the gameplay is supposed to function. You show how the player can interact with this world in this medium. Because, like, even like as little things as like the user interface, like in Red Alert 2, the Allied interface is clean and sleek and just futuristic, and the Soviet interface is brutal and diesel and smoky and grimy. And Yuri's interface in the expansion pack is just this weird sci-fi B movie looking deal. And it's like, it helps you feel for each faction, for each game. It has the identity there for you to dive in with. And that's why CNC4 hurt so bad. Because they just took those decades of knowing how this all works and just saying, fuck it,
We want to
esports.
we want a quick buck right now instead of focusing on what the fans want.
And that's why it all hurt. Again, like you said, the remaster, them bringing back the original creative staff, them remastering, them finding those old tapes, that gives a glimmer, the slightest glimmer of hope that maybe some people at EA have learned their lesson and are saying, okay, how can we bring this franchise back in a way that satisfies and actually gives people what they want while still making us that buck?
And they also did that with support from the fan community. There's a lot of fan
Exactly.
input into the remaster, from what I remember
There was
reading up
so much
about it.
fan input. Fans would go in and beta test, and the creators would even go, okay, how did we miss that a decade ago?
That's crazy. I mean, that's
Exactly.
amazing that and from what I was even seeing is like they EA really apparently was like very supportive of everything they wanted to do for the remaster, which is once again very promising.
Exactly. EA has
Uh,
probably learned its lesson a lot after being one of the most heavy companies in America. And I personally can hold out some hope that Command and Conquer might have a shot again. I don't think it will ever be coming back to where we had it in the 90s and 2000s, where it was like this ridiculous and honestly very nostalgic trip. Because again, a lot of this is me being nostalgic because this was my childhood. I grew up
yeah,
fighting with the Allied nations against the grim and gritty Soviets. And I grew up watching as Tiberium took over the planet and spread across the globe. So to me, this is a very personal series because I grew up being bullied a lot, and my escape was diving into Command and Conquer and just letting my brain go to this other world where I was this military hero saving the day. And so
hmm
it's a lot of nostalgia for me too. And I'm not afraid to admit it. Like, it's it's my heroine in a way. Like I boot up Command and Conquer, and I'm taken back to a place where I was happy.
And well, then that's the whole thing of that's the whole one of the main reasons I do this podcast, man. It's like when you find something that like really connected with you as a kid, it's the best feeling in the world to go back and relive it. Even though it's not the same feeling, it's a warm blanket feeling. And
Don't get me wrong, that warm blanket can be bad if you let it take over your life, but
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
the way they did,
Nostalgia can be a real
it's
wall.
heroin.
Yeah, it could be heroin.
But like I said, like that's what the remaster was so good for. Like it gave you that hit, but it didn't overwhelm you with it. It didn't try and say, "Look, everything's exactly as it was. We didn't touch anything. We didn't fix anything. It's exactly as you remember it." No, they said, "Here's how we can make it a little bit better."
Exactly, keeping the spirit of it, but by adding some quality of life improvements. That's what most people look for with remasters now. Anyway, it's like we don't want the. I mean, Remember when Nintendo released the Mario 3D All Stars?
Oh boy.
People were pissed that they didn't do anything to help improve the not only the visuals of Mario 64, which I still like the old visuals. That's more of a personal preference and nostalgia
But the
goggles.
gameplay was still, what the
But
hell, man?
well, and the gameplay overall is fine. The biggest issue that I think that people would have liked, like a hint of an upgrade, camera. The camera is awful because it's an N64 game. They didn't
Would have made that
understand.
penguin level easier.
Yeah, that's for sure. But all right, let's start wrapping this up. We've been going
Well,
on
there
for
is one section I would still like to bring up, and that
yes.
is the modding community.
Okay.
Again, like I said, community is a big part of Command and Conquer, and one of the biggest factors is mods. And for years, mods have been what kept CNC games alive. Like even today, you can go online searching hard enough, you will find Red Alert 2 mods that have been started back in like 2002 and are still in development to this day, releasing updates. And
That's crazy.
that's staying power. That's what that is. And again, these are reasons why EA shouldn't forget Command and Conquer, because you have all these mods adding years of replayability to a game that was released in the 2000s. That's incredible to think about. Like, how many games on PS2? Like, here's my example: Ace Combat. I love Ace Combat, but I can't mod the game to add in new missions. I can't add new planes. I can't add new challenges. Red Alert 2 has a mod out called Mental Omega. It
Okay.
adds 3 new factions for the Allies, Soviets, and Yuri. It adds
Wow.
dozens of new units. It adds new campaigns, fully voiced lines for these units. Like people will go in the community voicing these units. Yeah, exactly.
That's so that level of
That's just
passion's
one mod.
insane. Yeah.
Mental Omega has been running for a while now for Yuri's Revenge, and it is one of the biggest in terms of scale mods in Command and Conquer. But there's plenty more. In Command and Conquer Generals, it's kind of stalled out now, but there's a mod called Rise of the Reds. It originally started as, well, what if the Soviets got involved in the war against the GLA? But then it slowly turned into this thing where it's not just the Soviets, it's more of like post-Putin Russia and a more unified European Union called the European Continental Alliance. And like, what happens when all this other stuff gets added in? Like, there's a whole story behind Rise of the Reds where it's like, okay, what happens after the GLA's been pushed out of Europe and now China's top dog for a while? What happens
Mhm.
to a world like this that's been trapped in a war on terror for nigh on 3 decades now? What happens when super weapons become weapons of everyday conflict? And there's this great style to it too, because like the fans also understand that aesthetics, visual shorthand style. Like in Rise of the Reds, the Russian units are just these brutal, steel gray, just fucking rush the enemy kind of units. Like
Yeah, yeah.
like they look like actual Russian weapons, and they're just brutal. Their bases are brutal. They're direct. They're to the point, and their gameplay also reflects that. Like if you don't destroy a Russian building, like if you destroy a Russian building, it turns into a bunker you can garrison infantry in, which adds another level of, oh shit, now I got to clear this out.
Yeah,
Whereas
yeah.
with the European Continental Alliance, they're this kind of sleek-ish, not quite futuristic, but they're, how do I put this? They're kind of like sci-fi as we see it now. If if the United States in general is cutting edge military sci-fi, the European Continental Alliance are basically like 50 years into the future kind of sci-fi, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like they have particle shields and battle suits and all these crazy weapons, and they fight defensively, but they fight hard too. And this is all made by the fans. There's no profit in this. We
Yeah.
do it because we love these games. I myself have been involved in a CNC fan project for Red Alert 3. It was called Red Alert 3 Paradox. The
Okay.
entire idea was Red Alert 3 is already campy and crazy as fuck, right? What if
Yeah.
we made it crazier? Like we had
Why would you do
concepts.
that?
We had concepts for a group called this was at the time before things were like crazy, mind you. They were called the Confederate Revolutionaries, and they were based off the 60s counterculture. You had hippies with lever action rifles going, "Sup, man? Let's fight the man with these shotguns, hey?" And we had a group called the Mediterranean Syndicate, who were basically Roman cyberpunk.
That's kind of badass, actually. I kind of like that.
We also had the Order of the Talon, who are basically like a secret Catholic order of crusaders who fight with steampunk and clockpunk weapons. And the entire point was just like, this shit's crazy already. Let's go full bore. Let's just pop the pills and go on the ride, shall we?
I like how much more lore the community adds to it.
We also give it a firm grounding in history. Like we add in like, okay, no one knows quite when Red Alert 3 takes place. What if we set it in 1968 and 1969 during the Vietnam War and explored how that all changes in this universe?
Yeah.
And how do we explore how this alternate 60s counterculture that's actually taking up arms does things? What happens if all this wild shit in Europe actually gets wilder? Like in our lore, we had the Allies building the Berlin Wall, not the Soviets.
Interesting. Okay.
Because it's like a last desperate defense measure if the Soviets ever like decide, okay, World War IV is on, invade Berlin.
Okay, I gotcha.
And again,
do the Soviets do the Berlin airlift this time?
And again, the whole thing was it never got off the ground. Sadly, really, like there was one beta that was released, but this was Red Alert 3, and Red Alert 3's engine is a little tough to work with.
Well, 3D models, I feel like makes it a lot more difficult to.
No, because there's plenty of mods for Command & Conquer 3. Like two of the biggest ones are the Forgotten mod, which added in a full campaign for the Forgotten again.
Okay.
And it had fans doing the full motion video scenes too. Like the fans made their own full motion videos. And it's so great because they're just as corny as back when it was in Command & Conquer Tiberium Dawn.
Well, it kind of works with the aesthetic of the series. Yeah.
And again, they add the whole aesthetic of the Forgotten too. Because the Forgotten aren't like GDI or not. They aren't a nation state. They scavenge from the detritus of these conflicts. So like the Forgotten use old Nod tick tanks from the Second Tiberium War, or they literally use repurposed RVs as like mobile APCs with rockets on the top. And they also live in concert with Tiberium organisms. So like one of the units of the Forgotten mod is you use Tiberium fiends as attack dogs. Like you're using Tiberium life for your war, and that fits with the Forgotten because they're beings who have been affected by Tiberium. And another nod to a mod is Tiberium Essence. And Tiberium Essence is a very good mod because it goes back to what the fans kind of expected out of CNC3. Instead of tanks, GDI is still using walkers and hovercraft because they're navigating this Tiberium transformed world. Nod has tunneling units going underground for miles and miles. And the style they use in Tiberium Essence is great because it goes back to that CNC Tiberium Sun style with the upgraded tech of Tiberium Wars.
Okay.
And like everything gets a redesign. Like even the Skrin look way more alien this time too. Like in CNC3, the Skrin were kind of like this kind of bioorganic take on War of the Worlds. Like they even have tripod walkers stalking around the battlefield.
Mm-hmm.
In Tiberium Essence, they redesigned the Skrin to be more alien, more freaky, more in fitting with what we gotten used to. And that's not to say like CNC3 is bad, but Tiberium Essence just takes it a whole nother level up. And that mod is still going. Not only have they just finished releasing the Forgotten as a faction, so that's 4 factions now. they're working on a fifth faction based on Cabal, the AI that went rogue. So they're
Oh
going to have
wow,
5 total factions in this mod.
that's that that's amazing. How like
Exactly.
that's so much like the modding community is truly amazing because I can't
It really is.
imagine I can't like and that goes with any game. I just can't imagine a fan base of I can't imagine someone doing something for that much work for free, you
And
know?
that's the
But
thing, like EA kind of forgot that for a while because the fan base is what drives Command and Conquer.
yeah.
It's that kind of loyalty that has driven Command and Conquer's fan base to not give up hope that one day we will see Kane again.
And hopefully like especially with the success of the HD remaster of the remastered ones, maybe there will be something, you know?
I don't expect it to be perfect. Like it was never perfect. I'm not gonna lie and say like, oh, back in the old days, Command and Conquer was always perfect. But I will say that with some luck in the future, we might see Command and Conquer return to a new glory. And God willing, it'll be in a way that gives a new generation of fans the same kind of thrill that we got when we were growing up.
I feel like it's going to at some point too because RTS games are starting to make a comeback. I'm not saying they're ever going to be, like Fortnite or Call of Duty or
Please, no, we don't need it to
no,
be
we don't need
dominated
that.
by those kind of idiots.
But but it is starting to make a comeback because what is it? There's Company of Heroes 3 is in development and has a scheduled release date. I
Mm-hmm.
forget when. Like Age of Empires 4 just came out somewhat recently, and there's still a lot of popularity with the Age of Empires 2 remastered edition, enhanced HD edition or whatever it is.
Yep. And that's what I'm
Then
saying. Like, it has a chance. If EA gives it to people who understand what they're trying to do, then yeah, Command and Conquer will come roaring back. And I honestly, truly hope that when they hand it off to the people that they need to have it, that those people go back and don't ignore what came before, but implement what came before in a way that makes it a Command and Conquer game.
and I think we'll see that. So all right, that should do it for this. Let's wrap this. Let's wrap this bad boy up.
Let's let if I may let a fan summarize it in total.
By all means.
Started off great, kept going great, got even wilder, got even wackier, got kind of sci-fi, got kind of campy. Oh, hey, look at this, some rip from the headline shit. Maybe let's go back to the sci-fi. Back to the sci-fi. Sci-fi is solid. Ultra fucking camp. Okay, wait a minute, that was a little too much camp. Dial it back a little bit. What the hell is this esports shit? Fuck you, EA Games. Okay, EA, maybe we'll let you back into the house for a little while.
That's a really good way to summarize the whole series, like the highs and lows of
And
it,
again, like
especially with EA's tenure.
I love the series and I don't ever think it'll die. And I have hopes that with the fan community being what it is, one day we will see the Brotherhood rise to prominence again, and the glory of Tiberium spread across the globe. One vision, one purpose. In the name of Kane, brothers and sisters, peace through power! Peace through power! Peace through power!
Isn't that how you ended the last episode as well?
It's the chant of the Command and Conquer fan,
Oh,
asshole.
okay, okay.
We will
Well,
never let that chant go.
I didn't know. Why would I know that?
One day, brother, you too
But
will be
now I
part of the
do. But
Brotherhood of
now I
God.
do. That's the important thing is now I'm educated, and so is so are my listeners.
Whether they want it to be or not.
Yep, forced right in there. But all right, that will do it for this episode of Still Loading. Bob, thank you so much for joining me. I mean, the last episode it was a lot more like it was still a lot of explaining the story, but I feel like this time I was a little bit more punchy. So I'm sorry if I came off as like rude
Oh,
at all. It was
please.
I
Dude, I
didn't.
just got done 5 years in the Marine Corps. You are nothing. You're a little bitch.
Oh, right in my feeling. But anyway, so Bob, is there any place that people can find you online or anything you want to promote?
I again would like to promote the Hearts of Iron 4 mod that's being turned into Command and Conquer called Shadow of Nibiru. If you look it up, you'll be able to find it. And as far as promoting anything I'm doing, I honestly just do a lot of fanfic writing. So search Flyboy254 on Archive of Our Own. And honestly, all I can say to your listeners is if you want to give a new series a try that isn't what you've played before, if you've never played an RTS before, go play Command and Conquer. And I promise you, you will not regret picking up these games.
I would agree. I even like the little bits I have played of it, I've enjoyed it and it's made me want to play more. So, and I'm not just saying that because, I try to be positive on the podcast. I would tell you if I have no intention of ever going back to it, but I have intention. Like, I literally, over the course of recording, I've opened up about 60 different tabs about Command and Conquer related things on my web browser to look into later. So, just put that in perspective there. But
I
that
know,
will
and
do.
like I
Sorry.
said, you you can't keep a good thing down, and Command and Conquer is definitely a good thing.
It definitely is. So that will do it for this episode of Still Loading. Thank you all for listening. As usual, you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Still Loading Pod on all of them. You can also email me stillloadingcontact@gmail.com. If you want to support the show, you can either give it a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts / whichever podcasting app you listen to, because that helps more people find the show and it makes me feel warm and fuzzy. If you want to support it monetarily, you can go to patreon.com/stillloadingpod. For $1 a month, you'll get the episodes a couple days early and at a higher bit rate, as well as access to a patron exclusive Discord. If you go a little bit higher to the $5 level, you'll get all of that plus 2 bonus episodes a month. One thing I always keep forgetting to shout out, I do stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/stillloadingpod. It's usually Tuesday nights in between like 7:30 and 8 o'clock Eastern. So feel free to check that out if that interests you. But the most important shout out is the Bit by Bit Foundation. The Bit by Bit Foundation is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to put video games and video game consoles in the hands of kids receiving inpatient care at hospitals. So if you want to go support them, go to bitbybitfoundation.org and consider donating. And that will do it for this episode of Still Loading. Bob, thank you so much for joining me.
Peace through power! Peace through power!
And that will do it. I will see you all next time.